Hey everyone, welcome into a very special episode on the channel, a Planet Coaster 2 hands-on episode. I was very fortunate to participate in an early access hands-on preview of Planet Coaster 2. I want to give a huge thank you to Kat and Chris over at Frontier for giving me the opportunity to do this. And we're going to go through most of the time. So basically the way it worked is we were given 45 minutes in a campaign and 45 minutes in free build sandbox mode. So knowing my audience, I'm going to spend the bulk of this video talking about the sandbox mode. But I do want to preface everything that I'm going to cover with a couple of things. One, this is not the final version of the game that you're going to see today. There are things in here that may change. There are things that may be added. I know they did ask for our feedback, which I'll share some of which today. Overall, I am very, very excited for the game. I think there's a ton of positives here that build on Planet Coaster 1 and on Planet Zoo. There are some things that I would like to see tweaked and changed and some slight improvements, but I think because there is so much good here, some of those maybe flaws are a little bit more noticeable than they would otherwise be. But overall, very excited. So the campaign you saw was one of many that are available to you. I think it had a really good story attached to it. I think those of you who enjoy that kind of gameplay are really going to see improvements there in that mode versus Planet Coaster 1. And so inside of the sandbox, the first thing that I wanted to do was check out one of the coasters. By no means am I a coaster expert, but I do feel like from the original version, Planet Coaster, to what I saw in this demo, that the coasters seem to be scaled slightly better. The tracks seem to twist and turn a little bit more naturally. So, visually speaking, I think it looks better. At the end of the video, I'll have an on-ride POV of this particular coaster that we'll be able to watch. And I even feel like that movement in general is a little bit smoother than in Planet Coaster 1. Without the need for, those of you who played Planet Coaster 1 know about the 2 meter or 4 meter method. It's been so long I can't even remember. I think it was the 4 meter method where you had a ton of little tiny segments of track that you would smooth over and over and over again. It appears that kind of work won't be necessary in this game. So one thing right off the bat that I did notice that was kind of an issue for me was the paths here for the queues. So there is in original Planet Coaster, there was a 2 meter path option for the queues available, which was really helpful because a lot of queues are very narrow paths. Many of them have cattle pens that go back and forth, and those are all very narrow spaces at a premium typically, but it allows you to get a lot of people in a small space. Currently, there's no 2 meter option for the queue paths. That was some of the feedback I provided, so hopefully that's something that can be done and will be done in either the final version of the game or at some point in an update. I'm hopeful that can happen. So we'll see what feedback they get from other creators. The other thing that was a little bit frustrating, you can see me dealing with it here, was the height clearances for paths to go under one another. That is more than enough space right there for a peep to walk under. But the game would not allow me to build under that, and I even had the restrictions all turned off, and it still wouldn't allow me. One feature that is fantastic, though, you saw it if you had a keen eye just a second ago, there's an option where you can automatically make the terrain level up to where your path is. I think that's going to be hugely beneficial when it comes to the type of creative things people can do with terrain in the game. So you could actually, in theory, use the terrain to use the paths to create types of terrains and slopes and things like that you would like. Just from a scenery standpoint, you could use the paths as a sculpting tool, more or less, in that capacity. So I was very excited about that. The other thing with the path tool that I do love is this curve feature here. You can see I was able to get very natural, long curves, very easily. It didn't take me much time at all. A curve like that in the original game would have been much more difficult. You've seen a lot of the videos so far about like the plazas and things like that are easy to create, and the way that the paths kind of just build on one another. That's fantastic. I think everyone's going to be really happy with that. The only other nitpick I have on the paths, other than the queues and the height clearances, is that you cannot currently, at least I couldn't see a way to currently disable curbs on the paths. Many of people that follow this channel or build in a similar way that I do like the ability to do custom curbs, or in some situations have no curbs at all. So we'll see if that becomes something that can make its way into the game. I'm sure they have a ton of conflicting priorities, but I would love to see that added. Here's another example of, you can see the height restrictions coming into play. That should be more than enough clearance, but the game wouldn't let me build until I dropped the exit path down here. And then you're going to see me kind of struggle with it similarly over there. It's telling me there's not enough clearance, when in reality, especially on that portion to the left, there should be more than enough room to allow peeps to walk under. So I finally give up and just end up looping this thing back around to the main path. But I do feel like the paths overall are much, much improved. I think they're just kind of scratching the surface on some of the creative ways they can be used to get the end product that a lot of people will be looking for. So very excited for that. This is the scenery brush I wanted to test out a little bit. I think it'll take some finagling to get used to. You can see me kind of tweaking the size and the intensity and things like that. I think it'll be hugely useful for more natural type areas. If you're going to be doing something that's more landscaped, you're probably going to do a lot of hand placing and things like that. But huge upgrade, I think, in terms of being able to do landscaping around parks. The next thing I wanted to do was jump into the pieces. So I had limited time in here, so I really wanted to make sure I saw as much of the rides and scenery as possible. The scenery looks fantastic. I will say that all of it looks really, really amazing. A couple of things to point out. From what I could tell, every piece that I noticed or I specifically looked at was recolorable. There is a chance that there are pieces I missed that are not recolorable that you can't change. But from what I could tell, every piece you could change the color on. Not every piece is scalable. So as much as I could tell, if a piece is gridded like you're seeing here, or if a piece is animatronic in nature, so it's got moving pieces to it, those are the only ones that you could not scale. Everything else, non-gridded pieces, as long as they weren't animatronic, you can scale up or down, which you'll see me messing with in a second here. I put a path down and put some of the staff because I wanted to compare from peep size, how the scale would work. And I think that's going to be such an incredible game changer. There's going to be so many versatile ways to use all of these pieces. And I cannot wait to see how people build with them. Like stuff like this, these doors, you'll see in a second, they can get, pretty much smaller than the actual peep size where they wouldn't even really fit in. And they can get massive as well. So massive that, some of these pieces you could probably use as like the roof of a building or the side of a building or something like that. So there's going to be a ton of versatility here with the way these pieces are used. One thing you'll notice, I'll point out in a second here, that is a little bit frustrating inside of the building system or the user interface is you have that sort of return to browser. You'll see it here with the staff. So in the old Planet Coaster and even in Planet Zoo, when you go into one of these menus, they stay open even once you click. So in this case, you're clicking on one of the mascots or a staff person, and that menu is going to stay open, so you can easily go back and select another one if you want to. With scenery, it's really frustrating, honestly, to build with, and it's probably the number one piece of feedback I gave to them is, having to click back into the menu every time you want to select a new piece. It's particularly slows down the building process when you're using the advanced move tool there. So in the old Planet Coaster, once you had the advanced move up, it was real. So let's say you're building on a wall, you're putting windows in, you're putting doors in, you're putting in details. You could switch from piece to piece because the menu would stay open. It was really easy to click into it. Well, now you have to completely click out of the piece that you're using that has the advanced move tool open. It will close the advanced move tool in order for you to open the browser and select a new piece. So it makes it really difficult to build in a streamlined fashion like the old game would allow. And that is probably my biggest concern about the game currently, is that user interface. So I'm hoping that they have the ability to, I'm sure it was done because this is a joint PC and console release. I'm sure that was the reasoning behind it, which is a fine reason, but I hope there's a way for us to select, whether it's just checking a box inside of the PC version where we can select to have the user interface remain open when we're choosing between different scenery pieces. Because like I said, in particular, the advanced move one is where I could see there being a huge issue when it comes to building in the way that I know a lot of my community likes to build in the game. But back to the positives. The scenery pieces here, like I said, are fantastic. There's a ton of scenery pieces too. That's the other thing that I'll point out is I honestly don't think I got through all of them in my playtime. I was trying to check as many boxes as possible, and so I actually at some point here in the video you'll see me start to sort by scenery theme. So currently I'm just going down the master list of all of the scenery items, and it started with the aquatic theme, but we'll get into the other themes specifically. I did not touch on the Planet Coaster theme or the resort theme. I did not look at either one of those really. I just wanted to look at the specialized themes, but again, there's an example scaling down that window. It will be hugely versatile. The other thing that I did notice about the windows that I saw, at least, is none of them had transparent glass. That may be an issue for folks. I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I should have searched for glass. I don't even know if there are glass pieces in the game similar to Planet Zoo. So if there are no glass pieces that are transparent, that would also be a huge priority for me. I think once they finally added that into the original Planet Coaster, it was a game changer that the community had really been asking for a long time. But going back to the versatility of all these pieces, in this set in particular, some of those rooftop windows are going to be insanely useful for backstages and things like that. Also, the ability to scale these breeze blocks here are great, and even that normal size there, the bricks themselves are pretty well scaled. Also, there are decals in the game, so those of you who play Planet Zoo will recognize these decals that are available and part of the game at launch, which are so great, especially for making the sidewalks look a little more used and maybe buildings look a little bit rougher, whether that's because you want it to look kind of old and run down, or it's because it's a highly themed area and you want it to look like temple ruins or something like that. So in a second here, you'll see me shift from the aquatic set into, I think the next one I do is the Viking one maybe, or it's the mythological. I think it's the mythological. So while we're waiting for those pieces to show up, one thing that I kind of breezed over at the start of the video was there is from a gameplay standpoint, there is a power need for the rides. I wasn't quite sure how to figure that out, honestly. It was not that intuitive, but there is a way for you to turn it off in sandbox mode. So if it's something you don't want to deal with, you don't want to deal with power or water requirements, you can just shut it off entirely. which I probably will do. But, also if you want to play with a blend of, sandbox and also have some of those types of restrictions, you can still keep it on inside of the sandbox mode. And I'm sure it will be, a substantial part of the campaigns. So that the marble piece that I just recolored, I'm a huge fan of. It's incredible. It's a part of a set. So you could go dark marble with light veining. You could go light marble like I did there with darker veining. Again, just pointing out the versatility of all the sets. Love these tile roof set here. That's part of the mythology scenery set. So are these pools or these fountain bases, as you can see I'm scaling up and down here. So to scale, it's either available to click on inside of the piece menu there, or if you hit X when you're in the advanced move tool or to get to the advanced move tool, and then you it's one of the options that if you keep clicking on it, it will give you the scaling instead of the rotation like you're seeing there. There is still a snap to position option, but you have to go into the settings, which you're going to see me, I think I figure it out here. You actually have to, instead of doing advanced move, yeah, that's what it is. You have to move it, and then you can choose snap or position snap. And then I had to adjust it with the advanced move tool there. One thing too, I'll point out as you may have just seen it. I'm hoping that it'll pop up again. But when you use the advanced move tool, another thing that could be really useful is when you place an object down and then move it away from where you placed it with like right there, you can see those little numbers that popped up. You could actually use scenery items to measure distances in the game. So if you're, super freak when it comes to scaling and things like that, you could use the advanced move tool to put down a scenery piece, select the advanced move, and move it around, and it will actually tell you the distance that you've moved it from the original. See right there, you can see it, 0.92 meters is how far I moved it up. It will also show you on the x-axis how far, I guess x and y, or x and z axis where you've moved it. Or how far you moved it from that original space. So that will be a nice feature for those of us that really do try to build within the scale of the peeps in the game. So you can see a lot of these door sets here, they actually have some, looks like video screens on them. With the fire in that one up in the upper left-hand corner there. I didn't really dive into the piece in a ton, so I don't know if that's something you can turn off. Certainly you could put another scenery piece over it if that's something that you're not interested in. And I'm just kind of breezing through here at this point. I don't think I touched every single piece because there's just so many, honestly. But it gives you an idea of just how much is there. There's some stuff that's highly themed, like this Minotaur animatronic. And then there's stuff that is generic enough that it could be used for anything. Some of you will probably figure out a way to use that animatronic that comes across as a generic way or a generic option, whether it's just the wheel or whatever. I'm excited to see what people do there. This set in particular, I think, is fantastic. The mythology pieces here, again, recolorable. You've got a mix of stone and metal. Full statue set there that you can build from. And then lots of this sort of stonework inside of the mythological set. After this, I'm going to go into the Viking set, which has sort of a style around how to train your dragon. That's kind of, I think, what I would compare it to, where it's a little more kind of cartoonish Viking and, less so kind of serious Viking, which is probably the right tone to strike for an amusement park game. But again, all of those pieces that I saw, super useful, super beneficial. I think this lull right here, I was going to put dinner in the oven, so that's why we're paused. Overall, my thoughts on the game while we're waiting for some more scenery pieces. One, the scenery is phenomenal. Two, the amount of scenery is honestly really surprising. I thought there was going to be a lot less pieces in the game, and I think we're going to have plenty to work with from the start. And obviously, as they release DLCs, assuming they do, I'm assuming that's what's going to happen, there will be even more to continue to flesh out our parks and make them look either super generic or super themed, whatever kind of builder you are. The other thing that I was shocked by is the sheer number of rides and coasters that are in the game. At launch, there's a ton of roller coasters available to use. There's a ton of flat rides available to use as well. I think a lot of people were concerned that this was just going to be, for lack of a better way of saying it, just a water park game. I'm somebody that, for me, I'm not even showing you the water park stuff here because it's not a huge focus for me, honestly. I'm not the biggest water park fan, so I'd much rather spend time building sort of an amusement park without that element of it. But for those of you who do want it, I can tell you from playing the demo, you're going to be thrilled with it. It's going to give you, from what I could tell, everything that you're wanting in that kind of a game. Where I see myself using the water park scenery is, I didn't get a chance to do this, but I'd love to see how the flumes and things like that interact with the terrain, and could you use them to create little rivers and streams in your park? Can you use the terrain tool to add in the water to kind of do that same thing, basically use the pool as a river or something running through, or a pond or a lake? Those are the things I didn't get a chance to do that I'll be very interested to dive into inside of the final version of the game when it launches. These are incredible. These are probably my favorite piece from the Viking set. Is these? They have tons of these banners that actually move. I think depending on how you recolor those, you could put them on their side, and they would be, they could be flag decorations for the entrance of your park. They could be, flag decorations for certain areas of your park, or they could be used for their intended purpose, which is, as a Viking theme or something like that. But the fact that there's movement to these, even though it's, it loops fairly quickly, is just so cool, because in Planet Coaster 1, there was nothing like that. We had bunting and stuff and even in Planet Zoo, they have bunting and things like that don't move. So awesome feature to have. The wood pieces for the Viking set are understandably great, or I should say, as you would expect, they are great. The door pieces for most of these theme sets, I'm sure I think the mythology one, there will be a lot of broad uses for, and even the Viking one, you could use these for a number of different themes. They don't have to just be the Viking theme here. And so, so anyway, back to kind of summarizing my experience. Scenery is great. The amount of rides, the amount of roller coasters that are in the game are absolutely amazing to launch. And I believe, so I'm trying to look up the details here. I just want to make sure I get the information correct. So there will be a pre-order of a standard version and a pre-order of a deluxe version. The pre-order version comes with a couple of different rides that you get as a pre-order bonus. And then the deluxe version comes with those pre-order options, and you also get 10 vintage rides that are a part of the deluxe edition of the game. So in the base game, as in a minute here, you'll see me start to go through the list of flat rides. And one thing that was noticeably missing from the list of flat rides was a carousel, which that is in the that's in the vintage ride pack, and it might even be, I shouldn't speak on that, actually. I'm not 100% sure. So there will be, either through pre-order or through the vintage rides, there will be a grand carousel. There's also the swing ride that the seats that you sit in the swing and it goes around, and a few others of those sort of vintage type rides that will also be in the base game. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to develop the game. When the DLCs, if they do DLCs, where they take that. Will it be heavily scenery focused? Will they continue to find more flat ride types to include in the game? Will they do variations on roller coasters? I'll be very interested to see how they proceed with the development of the game. One thing that I was excited about is all of these scenery special effects. This is something we didn't get, I don't think so anyway, in the base game of Planet Coaster. But really excited to see these in, especially some of the water effects, and there's some cool pyrotechnic effects as well that you can use if you're going all out, kind of a Disney Universal style park that are going to have those elements in them. But these waterfall effects in particular are right out of Planet Zoo. Those sort of water explosion features I remember from the original Planet Coaster game. All of these things can be hooked up to a sequencer, which is amazing. So you can create, timed moments for all of your roller coasters where, these effects will occur at certain periods, or even like if you want to do a dark ride type of thing, you can use a sequencer to make sure that all of those things happen in kind of a show form. So here I am going through, well, not yet. Sorry, I'll go through the list of them after this. I wanted to just use the Ferris wheel for a minute to kind of mess with the terrain. I'm a sucker for parks that have a Ferris wheel kind of front and center, and then put it up on a berm and kind of sculpt it down around. And maybe there's like the park name on it. So I didn't have enough time to actually do that here, but I wanted to just see how the rides react to the terrain or interact with the terrain, and also the paths, how they interact with the terrain. So you're going to see that as I lay some path work down and start messing with the terrain. So you can see me trying to figure out the queue. Again, there's only a 4-meter option, which then you can do. You can see I did ground. So when I selected ground, it automatically lifted the ground up to the path level, which will be hugely useful, like I said, for terrain sculpting and things like that. The other part of it is you can either do a curved or a square, but there is no option to do like a grid with the queue, which I would also like to see that implemented if possible, because especially when doing things like cattle pens and stuff like that, when in the old Planet Coaster, you could select a grid to build off of, and you could either select that grid from a building, or you could select that grid from an existing piece of path. And that was so useful for building queues and building cattle pens that I hope there's a way, and maybe there is. Maybe, to be honest, I just scratched the surface, I think, of what the pathing tool can do. So maybe in one of these other videos, someone will have figured out that actually is in the game and there's a way to do that. But as much as I could tell, that feature for queues anyway is not something you can do. Again, there could be something that I missed and it might be an option, but from what I could tell, it's not there. You can see how nicely though the terrain works with the pathing. So it will let you go right up to that path edge and without giving you any issues whatsoever. It's also a lot less jagged than Planet Coaster 1 and even Planet Zoo are when it comes to terrain sculpting. So I would say huge improvement there with how they interact. The one other thing I'd love to see on that front, inside of Planet Zoo, there's a a mod. They probably, aren't thrilled about that, but there's a mod that allows you to build the terrain or adjust the terrain even once you've put a path down. So like in this example, if you get down close, you can see that the actual path I have there has some bumps and ridges in it because I didn't smooth the terrain before I put the path down. You would be able to, with that tool, actually smooth out the path itself. So smooth out the terrain that's underneath the path, and then the path would adjust with the terrain. It's incredibly useful for building on slopes and things like that, to be able to smooth after you've already laid down a path, instead of having to delete the path, smooth the ground, put the path back, see if it looks good. If it doesn't, delete it again, smooth where you think it looks off, and then put the path back. So I would love to see that be an option that's implemented. I assume it can be done, but it's probably not super high on the priority list, which I understand. I don't ever want to be unrealistic with the things that I'm asking for or looking for, but that would be just a personal preference. So here you can see I'm going through the list of flat rides, which again, there are a ton. Some of them have a really nice small footprint, like this swinging ship. You could argue maybe that's a little bit big. One issue I did have with it is you can only put the entrance and exit on this one side. So you couldn't put it around the other side if you wanted to. I think, Planet Coaster 1 gave you the ability to kind of put the entrance almost anywhere. Maybe I'm not remembering correctly, but it was an option as far as I can remember. Some of the flat rides have a massive footprint, which was a struggle in the original Planet Coaster game. So that's something that, if possible, maybe there's a way to toggle them off or make them smaller or something like that. I mean, again, probably not a high priority list item. I'm probably, one of the few that would clamor for that. This ride has an amazingly small footprint. So there's a mix, basically. So depending on the type of project you're going to do or the type of park you're going to build, you'll be able to hopefully find enough rides that will allow you to do what you're looking for. The bumper cars here have roughly the same gigantic cover that the bumper cars did in Planet Coaster 1. So would have loved to see that be a little bit smaller, so that if you wanted to, you could cover over it with a custom option. Here you can see I'm trying to adjust the terrain to see if I can actually hide some of that massive platform. I would love if those railings went right up to basically that gray concrete there, and that was the footprint of the ride. That would be, in a perfect world, that would be great. That would be my preference. One nice thing though is that the sort of entrance bollards that were attached to the queue that connected to the path in the original game are gone, so we don't have to try to cover those up with scenery or be clever about how we cover those up. But the same little sort of futuristic looking gates that let you into the ride and out of the ride are still there. Again, I'd love to, getting into the weeds a little bit on requests, but I'd love if that was something optional that you could toggle on or off, or have maybe a different version of. And then with the roller coaster stations as well, the way that peeps line up, it would be nice to have some more customization there with the railings and things like that to really build out what you see in a lot of variation, honestly, amongst coasters and parks and things like that. So not currently an option. I do love if you wanted to keep the without hiding this bumper cars, I do love the lights on this. I think they look awesome. And I'm assuming a lot of that was one thing that always stood out to me in Planet Coaster 1 was so many of the flat rides had just incredible lighting at night. They just looked unbelievable at nighttime. So I'm looking forward to seeing more of that as well. I actually didn't play the game at night. You can see a couple of times, if you've got a keen eye here, the rain would come on in the game, which there are gameplay, I think, effects of that, but I'm not 100% sure what those details are, so I'm not gonna speculate on those. At this point, I was just trying to see as many flat rides as I could, or at least the ones that were interesting to me, I should say. And then I'm going to go into in a minute. This is just making sure I kind of looked at all of them. In a minute, I'm going to go into the list of coasters. And I do spend a little bit of time in the coaster builder. I was trying to find a switch track, and I couldn't. I did see, and you'll see this in the pre-order trailer. I don't, as far as I know, there's no transfer tracks. Maybe I missed that too. Again, I couldn't find all the pieces in the coaster builder. But I do think that there, for those of us who like realism, we could use that switch track in theory as kind of a stand-in for a transfer track. So with these kiosks here, they act a lot like the benches and the trash cans, so they want to line up around the edge of a path. So I figured out that if you want to offset them from the path edge, like I did where that Planet Coaster mascot is there, you just have to take that stamp tool and give yourself a little bit of a lip, and it will back up so that it's not sticking out on the path. The cubes will just attach to the path or make the path attached to them if you select them slightly off there. But the little stands themselves, you have to. They're basically treated like a bench or a bin. So you have to take that little extra step to just nudge them off the curb a little bit, which is nothing. It's no big deal. I think that's a perfectly fine solution for that kind of thing. So if you want, you can pause the video here and look at all the different coaster types, but you can see that they are numerous. There's a lot of different coasters. I'm not going to get into a ton of detail here because I am not a coaster expert by any means. I like riding roller coasters. I know, I'm in the shallow end of the pool when it comes to roller coasters, I'll put it that way. So I'll let some of the experts like Silverette, comment more on this element of the game, but I was just thrilled with the sheer number of coasters available. On the coaster front also, I didn't have enough time to get in and see about adding custom scenery to the coasters. I think they did a good job of demoing that, so it wasn't a high priority item for me in checking out the game while I was playing here. Mostly this, when I was building, I was trying to find the switch track. And I couldn't find it. So either it's something that's only available on certain coasters, which I'm assuming is the case, or it wasn't available in this version of the game for us. But I did see it in the pre-order trailer that we were able to see at the start of our session. So I do know it exists. I just couldn't find it, and that's really what I was trying to do here, was just check out the all of the special pieces. And I do think that they honestly did a much better job in this version of kind of scaling things down a little bit. It seems like it's a little more realistic in that front. Again, I could be wrong, but that's just my initial impression of it. And we're getting down to the end here of my time. I remember this is when I got the kind of 5-minute warning when I was starting to mess around with this coaster. You can see the rain happening there. And you can see they've got already all kinds of special effects. So there's plenty of blueprints too. If you're the kind of person that doesn't necessarily want to build this, obviously the game comes with a lot of blueprints, and then you'll be able to, as the workshop continues to get updated and improved, you'll be able to pull from all kinds of useful stuff on there. So excuse me, we're going to end with the POV of the first coaster that I put down, and you'll get an idea of kind of what I'm talking about when it comes to scale, and also to me, it feels like a much more natural ride coaster or ride camera than the first game. And this is, keep in mind, this is sped up at twice the speed, so this is going to look a little more intense and jerky than it actually is. But overall, I think that the coaster builder does seem to be improved, and the results of the coasters do seem to look better than Planet Coaster 1, in my opinion. So I'm going to end here with a couple of screenshots that were given to us as some of the materials for our session. You can see some of the details that are coming out. in some of these shots here. I'll let you kind of pause and zoom in and look at them and things like that. But overall, very, very happy with the state of the game in this early version of it. Again, there could be things that are changing that are not in this version, or things that are being tweaked that are not in this version. That was stressed to us at the beginning of the video. So keep that in mind as you digest everything that you're seeing today and everything that you're seeing from, not only this video, but other creators. If you're, thrilled, or if you really want something that you don't see there, just save your thoughts, I guess, or your concerns until we learn more and see more about the final product of the game. But overall, I'm very excited for this. I think it's taken a lot of the pros from Planet Coaster and Planet Zoo and built on them and improved upon them. And, there's the path tool in general, I think, is largely improved. I would say it's maybe a little bit of like 3 steps forward, 1 step back, with the stuff I mentioned about the cues. I think cues for an amusement park game are extremely important, and the lack of 2 meter for me is really a huge issue. And then the UI, the user interface built while you're building. To me, there has to be a way to keep that user interface open so that you can continue to scroll through and select scenery pieces without having to click out of a scenery piece, open the tool again, or open the UI again and select a new one. So other than that, though, honestly, all positive things. Very excited for the full version of the game to come out. I've already got a few project ideas that I cannot wait to get into and start using all of these scenery pieces in creative ways. And I can't wait to see all the stuff. That was one of my favorite parts of Planet Coaster 1, was you'd see someone before the Theme Maker's Toolkit came out. You would see people build stuff, and your mouth would just hit the floor because you were awestruck at how they did it, and you wanted to dive in and see what pieces they used to make that happen. So I can't wait for that feeling again as we get into to the game and everyone has access to it and starts building. So again, thank you to Kat and Chris over at Frontier for this opportunity. I really appreciate it. I hope you guys are as excited as I am for this game to come out. I can't wait, and thankfully it's going to be coming here soon, sooner than we think, and it'll be here before we know it. So thank you all so much for sticking with me through this video. Thank you for supporting my channel. Look forward to bringing you a lot more Planet Coaster content and wrapping up Tivoli Zoo for Planet Zoo as well. So thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next episode on the channel. Have a great day.